Hey guys, welcome back. Happy Tuesday. Today we're going to read the next two chapters out of Fuzzy Mud. That's the second chapter book that we are reading after Holes, same author. And I'm actually reading it out of the back of Holes where they preview it because I don't have the book yet. I ordered it and it'll be here soon, but we can still read. So this is chapter 2 of Fuzzy Mud. It's called Sunray Farm. In a secluded valley 33 miles northwest of Woodridge Academy was Sunray Farm. You wouldn't know it was a farm if you saw it. There were no animals, no green pastures, and no crops. At least none that grew big enough for anyone to see with the naked eye. Instead, what you would see, if you made it past the armed guards, the electric fence topped with barbed wire, past the alarms and security cameras, would be rows and rows of giant storage tanks. You also wouldn't be able to see the network of tunnels and underground pipes connecting the storage tanks to the main laboratory, also underground. Hardly anyone in Heathcliff knew about Sunray Farm, and certainly not Tamaya or her friends. Those who had heard of it had only vague ideas about what was going on there. They might have heard of bioline, but they probably didn't know exactly what that was. A little more than a year before, that is, a year before Tamaya DeWaldy cut her hair and started the 5th grade, the United States Senate Committee on Energy and the Environment held a series of secret hearings regarding Sunray Farm and bioline. The following testimony is excerpted from that inquiry. Senator Wright said, "You worked at Sunray Farm for 2 years before being fired, is that correct?" Dr. Mark Humbird, "No, that is not correct. They never fired me." Senator Wright, "I'm sorry. I had been informed." Dr. Mark Humbird, "Well, they may have tried to fire me, but I already quit. I just hadn't told anyone yet." Senator Wright, "I see." Senator Foote, "But you no longer work there." Dr. Mark Humbird, "I couldn't be in the same room with a Fitzy a minute longer. That man's crazy, and when I say crazy, I mean 100% bananas." Senator Wright, "Are you referring to Jonathan Fitzman, the inventor of bioline?" Dr. Mark Humbird, "Everyone thinks he's some kind of a genius. But who did all of the work? Me. That's who, or at least I would have if he had let me. He'd pace around the lab, muttering to himself, his arms flailing. It was impossible for the rest of us to even concentrate. He'd sing songs, and if you asked him to stop, he would look at you like you were the one who was crazy. He wouldn't even know he was singing, and then, out of the blue, he'd slap the side of his head and shout, 'No, no, no!' And then suddenly I'd have to stop everything I'd been working on and start all over again." Senator Wright, "Yes, we've heard that Mr. Fitzman can be a bit eccentric." Senator Foote, "Which is one reason why we are concerned about bioline. Is it truly a viable alternative to gasoline?" Senator Wright, "This country needs clean energy, but is it safe?" Dr. Mark Humbird, "Clean energy? Is that what they're calling it? There's nothing clean about it. It's an abomination of nature. You want to know what they're doing at Sunray Farm? You really want to know? Because I know. Senator Foote, "Yes, we want to know. That's why you've been called before this committee, Mr. Humbird." Dr. Mark Humbird, "Doctor." Senator Foote, "Excuse me?" Dr. Mark Humbird, "It's Dr. Humbird, not Mr. Humbird. I have a PhD in microbiology." Senator Wright, "Our apologies. Now tell us, please, Dr. Humbird, what are they doing at Sunray Farm that you find so abominable?" Dr. Mark Humbird, "They have created a new form of life, never seen before." Senator Wright, "A kind of a high-energy bacteria, as I understand, to be used as fuel." Dr. Mark Humbird, "Not bacteria. Slime, mold. People always confuse the two. Both are microscopic, but they are really two very quite two quite different things. We began with a simple slime mold, but Fitzy altered its DNA to create something new, a single-celled, living creature that is totally unnatural to this planet. Sunray Farm is now growing these man-made microorganisms, these tiny Frankensteins, so that they can burn them alive inside of automobile engines. Senator Foote. Burn them alive? Don't you think that's a bit strong, Dr. Humbird? I mean, we're talking about microbes here. After all, every time I wash my hands or brush my teeth, I kill hundreds of thousands of bacteria. Dr. Mark Humbird. Just because they're small doesn't mean that their lives aren't worthwhile. Sunray Farm is creating life for the sole purpose of destroying it. Senator Wright. But isn't that what all farmers do? Chapter 3. Tuesday, November 2nd at 2:55 p.m. After school, Tamaya waited by the bike racks for Marshall. The racks were empty. Most of the students at Woodridge Academy lived too far away to ride their bikes, and there were no school buses for the private school. A line of cars extended from the circular driveway up Woodridge Lane towards Richmond Road. As Tamaya watched the other kids climb into cars and drive off, she wished that she had a ride too. She was already dreading the long walk home. It would feel even longer with a backpack full of books. Her face still burned with shame every time she thought about what had happened in the lunchroom. She was mad at Hope for saying what she had said, and even madder at Monica, who was supposed to be her best friend and who should have stuck up for her. So she was a good girl. So what? What was wrong with that? Being good was partly what Woodridge Academy was all about. The students all wore school uniforms, khaki pants and blue sweaters for boys, plaid skirts and maroon sweaters for girls. Embroidered on each sweater, right under the name of the school, were the words virtue and valor. Besides learning about history and math and all of that, the students at Woodridge Academy were also learning to be virtuous. The school was supposed to teach them how to be good people. When Tamaya was in the second grade, she had had to memorize a list of 10 virtues: charity, cleanliness, courage, empathy, grace, humility, integrity, patience, prudence, and temperance. This year, she was learning their synonyms and antonyms. But if you actually tried to be good, Tamaya thought bitterly, then everyone acted like you were some kind of a freak. Marshall came out of the building. His hair was a mess, and his sweater, stretched out of shape, seemed to hang crookedly. She didn't wave. He came towards her and then trudged on past her without hardly a glance. Marshall had a rule. They weren't supposed to act like friends around school. They were just two kids who walked to school together because they had to. They definitely were not boyfriend and girlfriend, and Marshall didn't want anyone thinking that they were. Tamaya was surprised, however, because he wasn't going the usual way. Normally, they headed up Woodridge Lane and then they turned right on Richmond Road. Instead, Marshall was heading towards the side of the school. She adjusted her backpack, and then she caught up to him. "Where are you going?" "Home," he said, as if she had just asked a really stupid question. "But I'm taking a shortcut," he snapped. That didn't make any sense. They had walked the same way every single day for the last 3 years. How could he suddenly know about a shortcut? He continued around the side of the school, towards the back. He was taller than she was and was walking quickly. Tamaya struggled to keep up. "But how do you suddenly know a shortcut?" she asked. He stopped and turned on her. "I don't suddenly know about it," he told her. "I've known about it my whole life." Well, that didn't make any sense either. "If you want to take the slow way home, that's up to you," Marshall said. "No one is making you come with me." That wasn't really true, and he knew it. Her mother didn't allow her to walk home alone. I'm going with you, aren't I?" Tamaya said. "Well, then quit being a baby about it," said Marshall. She stayed with him as he crossed the blacktop and then went out onto the soccer field. All she had done was ask how he knew about a shortcut, she thought. How was that being a baby? Marshall kept glancing behind him. Every time he looked back, Tamaya instinctively did too, but she didn't see anything or anybody. Tamaya still remembered her first day at Woodridge. She had been in the 2nd grade, and Marshall had been in the 4th. He had helped her to find her classroom, pointed out where the girls' bathroom was, and personally introduced her to Mrs. Thaxton, the headmistress. The new school had seemed like a big, scary place to her, and Marshall had been her guide and protector. She had had a secret crush on him all through the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grades. Maybe it still lingered a little bit inside of her, but lately he had been acting like such a jerk. She wasn't even sure she liked him anymore. Beyond the soccer field, the ground sloped down unevenly towards the chain-link fence that separated the schoolyard from the woods. As they moved closer to the fence, Tamaya could feel her heartbeat quicken. The air was cool and damp, but her throat felt dry and tight. Just a few weeks before, the woods had sparkled with bright fall colors. Looking out the window from her classroom on the 4th floor, she had been able to see every shade of red and orange and yellow, so bright that some days it had even looked as though the hillside were on fire, but now the colors had faded and the trees just looked dark and gloomy. She wished that she could be as brave as Marshall. It wasn't just the woods that scared her and what might or might not have been lurking within them. Even more than that, Tamaya was scared to death of getting in trouble. Just the thought of a teacher yelling at her filled her heart with fear. She knew that other kids broke the rules all the time, and nothing bad ever happened to them. Kids in her class would do something wrong, and then her teacher, Miss Filbert, would tell them not to do it. And then they would do it again the very next day and still not get into trouble. Still, she was sure that if she went into the woods, something horrible would happen to her. Mrs. Thaxton might find out, she could get expelled. A dip in the rocky ground created a gap big enough to crawl through under a section of the fence. Tamaya watched Marshall take off his backpack and then push it through the gap. She took off her backpack too. Miss Filbert had once said that courage meant just pretending to be brave. After all, if you're not scared, then there's nothing to be brave about, is there? Pretending to be brave. Tamaya shoved her backpack through the gap. There was no turning back. Now who's the goody-goody, she thought. She wiggled under the fence, careful not to snag her sweater. All right, we're going to stop there for today. We'll pick up with Chapter 4 of Fuzzy Mud tomorrow.